Learning to balance our right arm on the bow and learning the required level of tilt for wherever it is we are playing in the bow is an absolutely fundamental skill, not only in order to produce a beautiful sound, but also and especially in order for us to be able to play in such a way that will not cause any pain in either our right arm or hand. So over the course of the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be showing you how to do that in today's edition of Practice With Me. Before we start today's session, I just want to remind you really quickly that you can also find all of my content neatly arranged into playlists, links to which I'm now posting into the descriptions below the videos. So whether it is these Practice With Me videos that you really enjoy, or you want to maybe catch up on all of my advent calendar, which I did last December, it's all there for the taking. Of course, as ever, if you enjoy my videos, I'd be hugely grateful if you could subscribe if you haven't done so already, smash that like button, and if you want to be one of the people helping me to make more content in the future, you can now do that by leaving me a little tip via the link below. Grab your cello, it's time to practice. Today's exercise is one of those which on the face of it looks really simple and straightforward. But of course, as usual, the devil is in the detail. So I'm going to first of all once show you what it is we're going to be doing today, and then when we're doing it together, we'll really go into the nitty-gritty of it. So we're dividing our bow into 4 quarters, so in half and in half again. And all we're going to be doing is essentially playing open strings, starting both on the down bow and on the up bow at each of these different points, like so. Starting at the heel, at the quarter mark, at the halfway point, at the 3/4 mark, from the tip on the up bow, starting from the 3/4 mark, up bow, from the halfway point, and once again from the last quarter. So you might think, okay, that doesn't look very difficult. However, the eagle-eyed amongst you may already have spotted what the crux of the exercise is. And of course, it is that each one of these starting points in the bow requires a different level of, first of all, elbow pointing outwards and a different tilt or level of pronation in the lower arm. And of course, the higher in the bow we go, the more we need to pronate. So we're now going to try it together, and I will talk you step by step through the things that we really need to pay attention to. So I start here at the heel, first of all, and as you can see, my hand is completely neutral. My fingers are not unduly spread out or anything. Everything here is really nice and chilled. Now, very often what happens at the heel is that we're leaning the wrong way, that we're doing that. And of course, that means that the elbow is simply too close to the body and to the instrument, and we need to come out with the elbow as far as need be until we can feel that our balance is such that the center of gravity is at the point where hair meets string. And that feeling, learning to get that feeling, I always compare it, it's very similar to when you learn to drive a car with a manual transmission and you have to learn to find the biting point on the clutch. It's exactly the same principle. Here, we really need to find the biting point in the bow, so to speak. Now, the most important thing is to distinguish between elbow pointing out and raising the upper arm. One should happen, the other one should never happen. So all that should happen is the elbow goes out as far as need be. And the way to check that you are not doing that is really check in with your scapula, with your shoulder blade. The moment you feel that your shoulder blade is in any way being raised, every alarm bell needs to go off. Yeah, so you can see my shoulder belt here stays completely still, and all I'm doing is pointing really the tip of the elbow out to the side until I reach a point where I'm good. Now you can see at the very heel here, it's not very much at all. Yeah, everything looks straight ahead, it's pretty neutral. So now at the quarter point, you can start to see the tiniest slant here already inwards in the arm. Yes, so again, I feel my bite, and we go at the halfway point. The slant is already very noticeable, and you will hear something if you're now moving off, and you get this sort of slightly breathy, sort of not particularly healthy breathy sound. You know that the slant is insufficient. Yeah, likewise, if you get that, you know you're over egging it. So you just want to find the right level, and you can see here my fingers are completely loose. I'm not pressing, I'm just working with the slant. At the 3/4 mark, you can really see now a proper inwards turn, and of course once you're at the tip here, you can really see that it's pretty much just my first finger leaning on the stick, and all others I could just quite happily let them go. Make sure at that point that the thumb is not pressing into the bow. You should just feel the tip of the thumb, you should feel the sort of contact against the heel, but no more than that. And now we're doing bow, start at the 3/4 mark, start at the halfway point, and now you can see that the slant eases again, and like so. Now, I mentioned in my introduction earlier that one of the reasons that we really need to get the hang of that is that if we don't do that, if we are trying to play in the upper half of the bow without slanting inwards, we are putting an awful lot of pressure onto especially the base joint of our thumb. And in fact, just last week, I had one of my episodes of Julia's Cello Cafe, my monthly live workshop, where we always have this Q&A section where you can come with any problem that you have. And one of my lovely participants there came with exactly that problem. She said, I've got terrible pain in the base joint of my thumb. It's already inflamed. I'm having treatment on it. So it's like, whoa. So show me, just play me some open strings. I just want to see what's going on. And so it took no time at all to figure out what the issue was, because what was happening was that the higher she went in the bow, the more pressure was being put onto this. So that is really something to watch out for. So if you've ever experienced that if your thumb is hurting, that's the first thing to look at. Now, we need to do this exercise on each of the 4 strings because all the angles are slightly different. So the angles on the D and G are fairly similar, which is why I would always recommend starting with those. And I'm not going to repeat it on the G now because it's very, very similar, but we are going to go through with you through the other 2 strings. So now you can see here, starting at the heel on the C, I already need more of an inward slant than I do on the other 2 strings. Yeah, so you can see that in order to get the same at the 1/4 mark, you can see that I have to lean in more at the halfway point, at the 3/4 mark. Now you can really feel it when you're going into the upper part of the bow on the C string. You have to lean quite heavily inwards. And of course, when you're doing it on the up bow, it's really like you're pushing something uphill. Let's go from 3/4 mark, halfway point, and once again from the quarter. And now we're going to go on to the A. Here, as usual, I always suggest get the knee slightly behind the left corner so that the cello is slightly slanting inwards, and that brings the A string up to a level where everything becomes much, much easier. So we are here. In fact, I start, when I go onto the A string to find my arm level, start on the D string, and then you realize that your bow is literally only 2 millimeters away from the A string, and that is all that's needed. So there you go. Hand nice and relaxed. Again, you see my elbow is pointing out, but it's not going up. Check that over and over again. Now let's go from the quarter point. You see it's pointing outwards. My elbow is away from the body, but nothing is happening in my shoulder belt. From the midway point, 3/4 point, very light on the bow. And now from the tip, imagine like you're picking something. And we're going from 3/4, from the middle, and from the quarter mark. And there you are. So this exercise, if you're going to be doing it quite religiously, once you know obviously how it works, I gave you lots of information along the way now, but you can really condense that easily down into about 5 minutes, and that is time that is really, really well spent. That will make a huge difference to the quality of your bowing. And one more thing, once you have done the segmentation, try to actually play continuous long bows and just be aware of how the slant of the arm changes as we go along. So as usual, if you have any questions about any of this, please pop it into the chat below, and I always love to hear from you, as you know. And yeah, what can I say? Thank you for watching and happy practicing.